The first glow of daylight spread gently across the camps that lined the eastern edge of the Nile's fertile bank, where the soldiers of the Pharaoh rested in clusters of simple tents made of woven cloth and wooden poles. The river itself lay still in the soft hush of morning, its surface touched with the faintest shimmer of rose and pale gold. Among the quiet rows of sleeping men, a young soldier named Pharaoh opened his eyes slowly, feeling the cool breath of dawn settle on his skin. His mat of plaited reeds still held a trace of the night's pleasant chill, and for a moment he remained still, listening to the subtle stirrings of others waking around him. A low murmur traveled through the camp, not hurried or sharp, but calm, collected, and familiar. The soft clink of bronze spearheads resting against wooden racks, the quiet stretch of leather sandals being fastened, the gentle creak of shields being lifted from the ground. Even in the army, life at the start of day carried a steady, peaceful rhythm. Soldiers of the Pharaoh were not constantly in battle. Most days resembled those of laborers, scribes, or craftsmen, filled with training, preparation, and the slow upkeep of weapons and equipment. In this early hour, the air still carried the scent of last night's hearths, mingled with the sweet smell of river reeds warming in the sun. Pharaoh rose, stretching slowly as he stepped out of the tent. The eastern horizon glowed softly, silhouettes of palm fronds swaying in the mild breeze. The camp's layout was simple but orderly, rows of tents facing inward toward the central training ground, with small cook fires arranged in neat clusters. Beyond the camp, the land sloped gently toward the Nile, where boats belonging to supply officers rested on calm waters. The scent of damp silt accompanied the ripple of water as fishermen glided past, their nets trailing in quiet arcs. He joined his companions at the communal fire, where a simple breakfast was being prepared. Bread warmed on flat stones beside the embers, giving off a faint toasty aroma that mingled with the earthiness of barley beer being poured into small clay cups. Soldiers ate with quiet concentration, dipping their bread into bowls of mashed beans or spreading a bit of onion paste across its surface. The meal was humble but steadying, offering the strength needed for hours of training that would follow. Conversation flowed softly, men discussing the level of the river, the condition of their sandals, the wear on their spear shafts. There was no rush, no tension. The day unfolded easily, shaped by habit and the comfortable rhythm of routine. After breakfast, the soldiers gathered in the central training area, a wide, open space on hardened earth. Here, the morning light washed over the assembled companies, giving the bronze of their spearheads a faint, golden sheen. The captain, an older man with calm eyes and a voice softened by years of experience, called them into formation. His commands were straightforward, spoken in even tones that carried clearly without strain. Military discipline in the Pharaoh's army relied less on harshness and more on shared purpose, long practice, and mutual respect. Pharaoh took his place among the infantry, his spear held upright, his shield of stretched leather resting lightly on his arm. In slow, methodical patterns, the soldiers rehearsed their movements. They marched in tight lines, their sandals brushing the earth in unison. They practiced turning, withdrawing, advancing, motions that required coordination rather than force. The soft thud of hundreds of footsteps created a steady rhythm that echoed through the camp. The air warmed gradually around them, carrying the faint smell of sweat, dust, and sun-warmed leather. Training was not a frenzy of loud commands, but a calm, repetitive practice that shaped muscle memory through patience. Later, they paused to rest in the shade of a large tamarisk tree near the camp's edge. Painesi wiped dust from his brow, savoring the coolness of the breeze that drifted from the river. A supply officer passed out jars of water, and the soldiers drank slowly, feeling the refreshment spread through their limbs. Nearby, cavalrymen tended to their horses, brushing their coats with smooth, practiced strokes. The animals flicked their tails lazily, content under the attentive hands of their handlers. The light sound of hooves shifting in the sand added another quiet layer to the camp's gentle hum. As the sun rose higher, weapons maintenance began. Painesi sat outside his tent with his spear laid across his lap. Using a smooth stone, he checked the bronze tip, smoothing small imperfections and ensuring the edge remained even. His shield was next. He rubbed the leather surface with oil to keep it supple beneath the sun. Around him, other soldiers worked with similar care. Some sharpened axes, their soft scraping echoing against the tent walls. Others repaired chariot harnesses or tightened bindings on composite bows. A group of archers retrieved bundles of arrows from a wicker basket, smoothing shafts between their fingers to check for warping. The scent of wood, leather, and oil mingled pleasantly in the warm air. By mid-morning, the scribes arrived to take inventory. They carried wooden writing boards, their surfaces covered with neat rows of hieratic script. In soft voices, they asked for counts of spears, shields, bows, chariots, and ration supplies. Painesi watched as they dipped their reed pens into small pots of ink, the black strokes flowing elegantly across the surface of the boards. The scribe's presence reminded everyone that order, not chaos, guided the army, numbers tracked, supplies measured, responsibilities shared. Around midday, the heat settled more heavily over the camp. Training paused, and men retreated to the shade of tents or trees. Lunch was brought out in woven baskets, loaves of bread, bowls of lentils seasoned with herbs, pieces of dried fish, and jars of beer. Painesi sat with his companions, savoring the warm aroma of the lentils as they mixed with the breeze. Some soldiers folded pieces of bread into small pockets, filling them with the beans to make a simple, filling meal. Others soaked bread in beer to soften it. The conversation flowed quietly, memories of home, stories from previous campaigns, hopes for the next festival day when families might visit the camp. After eating, many soldiers rested, lying on mats beneath their tents. The afternoon sun pressed gently against the cloth coverings, creating warm, calming pockets of filtered light. Painesi closed his eyes, listening to the distant murmur of river water and the soft chatter of soldiers drifting into slumber. The horse handlers nearby brushed their animals in long, soothing motions, the rhythmic strokes merging with the muted rustle of palm leaves swaying in the breeze. When the heat softened later in the afternoon, the soldiers returned once more to practice. This time, they trained in smaller groups. Archers lined up behind wicker targets, loosing arrows that hummed softly through the warm air. Each release was measured, controlled, the bowstrings vibrating gently in the quiet. The infantry practiced maneuvering with shields interlocked, creating solid walls that moved like steady, breathing organisms. Others drilled in pairs, training with wooden practice swords that thudded lightly against shields. The purpose of all this was not aggression, but readiness, a calm understanding of their roles as defenders of the land. Near the riverbank, chariot drivers prepared for their exercises. With slow, deliberate movements, they harnessed the horses, ensuring the leather straps lay flat and comfortable across the animals' bodies. The chariots rolled forward with soft creaks of wood, wheels leaving shallow trails in the sand. When they set off at a trot, the sound remained gentle, the rhythmic clatter of wheels blending with the steady drumming of hooves. Drivers practiced turns, steady pacing, and smooth halts, while the chariot archers loosed arrows with graceful arcs. Nothing was rushed. Precision mattered more than speed. As the sun began its descent, casting long golden shadows across the camp, the soldiers gathered to clean up. They returned bows to racks, covered quivers with cloths, and wiped dust from their shields. The atmosphere grew even calmer, touched by the softness of early evening. Pharaoh walked slowly to the river's edge, where he rinsed his hands and splashed cool water onto his face. The Nile flowed past in a steady, patient current, its surface now turning shades of deep blue and shimmering gold. The faint scent of lotus flowers carried on the evening breeze, calming the senses after a day of work. Dinner was served as twilight settled gently over the camp. Larger fires were lit, their glow warming the cool air. Soldiers gathered around the flames, eating bowls of roasted vegetables and fresh bread. The flickering light cast soft shadows across their faces. Laughter rose occasionally, not loud or raucous, but warm and low, like the sound of embers settling into place. A musician among them played a simple tune on a small harp, the melody drifting through the camp with a calming sweetness. Later, officers made their rounds, speaking quietly with their men, asking after injuries or concerns. Pharaoh felt reassured by these visits, small gestures that reminded the soldiers of their importance within the larger machine of the Pharaoh's power. The army was not simply a force of war. It was a community built on structure, preparation, and shared purpose. Most days were like this one: quiet training, steady routines, peaceful evenings. Months or even years might pass without a campaign, and in that time, the army functioned much like any other part of Egyptian society. As night deepened, the fires dwindled into glowing embers. The sounds of the camp softened to whispers, the rustle of linen as men settled into sleep, the distant murmur of horses shifting in their enclosures, the faint rippling of water. Pharaoh lay down on his mat, feeling the warmth of the day fade into a comfortable coolness. He closed his eyes, letting the quiet embrace of the desert night settle over him. The army of the Pharaoh was vast and disciplined, yet its life was shaped by gentle routines, by the calm flow of days spent preparing, guarding, and waiting. Beneath the endless stars of the Egyptian sky, Pharaoh drifted into sleep, knowing that tomorrow would unfold with the same steady rhythm, marching, training, tending, resting, carried forward by the peaceful heartbeat of the Nile and the timeless cycles of the land.